You can do like a short version of the.
Hey everyone, we're here with our second of 8 calls regarding volunteer programs. And we're joined today by Cole Thaler, who's the founder of Paws Between Homes outside of Atlanta, Georgia, to talk about safety net fostering and how a group of folks that really cared a whole bunch decided that they were going to get together and start a nonprofit to fill this gap and provide some temporary fostering for families who are experiencing homelessness, and to talk us through that process. So welcome, Cole.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I'm going to share my screen. I just have a few slides to share. I don't know why every time I do this, it's like I'm doing it for the first time. Hold on one second.
You'd think after a year we'd be pros at it, right?
You know?
In some of the programs I use, they keep moving things just to keep it interesting. So.
All right, I think I found it. Okie doke. All right, well, I just put together a few slides to kind of tell the story of Paws Between Homes. We're still relatively new, but I just want to explain who we are, what work we do, and how we came to be and what we've been doing in the year plus that we've been around. So my name is Cole Thaler. I am, in my day job, I'm an attorney with a nonprofit that works with low-income tenants who are having problems with their landlords. So housing issues were sort of at the top of my mind, well, for years now. In 2019, I co-founded Paws Between Homes, and I am currently the president of the board of directors. So on all of these pictures are clients, Paws Between Homes clients and their pets. Okay, so late 2018, it sounds like a cliche, but I was literally walking my dog one day. And, you know, I had been thinking for a while about the eviction crisis in Atlanta. In Fulton County, which is the county that Atlanta, mostly the majority of Atlanta sits in, there are, in a typical year, about 45,000 eviction cases filed every year. And even pre-COVID, which obviously in 2018, it was a pre-COVID world, there was a terrible lack of affordable housing and a real crisis of people losing their housing and entering into this period of housing instability. And so my day job was trying to help tenants in that situation find free legal help. But it occurred to me in late 2018 that there really wasn't a safety net for the pets of the people in that situation. There's a semi-decent safety net for the people. You know, we have homeless shelters and various service providers, but really nothing for the pets. And I knew that the local shelters were just full to bursting with dogs and cats, and that one of the main reasons for owner surrender is eviction, somebody who is moving involuntarily, being forced out of their home. In Atlanta, there is actually in Georgia, they're statewide, there's an organization called Ahimsa House, which some of you may know of, but they are just a wonderful organization that does safety net fostering for the pets of domestic violence survivors. So when survivors are leaving an abusive situation, yes, thank you, Ahimsa House, spelled out in the chat. When the survivor is leaving the abusive situation, Ahimsa House places the pet into a temporary foster home and then reunites them when the survivor is back on her feet in stable and safe housing. But, you know, to qualify for their services, there does have to be that domestic violence piece. And there was nothing equivalent in Metro Atlanta for people who were being forced to move for other reasons, just sort of your garden variety eviction case. So I picked up the phone and I called the director of Ahimsa House, a woman named Myra Rasnick Wells, and I said, you know, I have this idea. Can I just pick your brain? Do you think there is a need for something like this in Atlanta? You know, will you help me brainstorm about this? And she said, it's so funny that you're calling me because I've had conversations just in the last couple of weeks with 3 or 4 other people, and we all agree this is a missing piece in Atlanta. So it was real synchronicity and the stars aligning to bring a lot of minds together, a lot of people who were affiliated with different animal rescue sort of pieces of the animal rescue community in Atlanta, all kind of had this good idea at once. So we had a conference call in December of 2018. And then really in 2019 was when we started meeting in person monthly and got to work on putting this vision together. So the coalition at the time consisted of a couple people affiliated with Humane Society of the United States, someone affiliated with Lifeline Animal Project, which is a large organization here in Atlanta, someone affiliated with ASPCA, who am I forgetting? Myra from Ahimsa House was there, and several others. So we were at someone from Atlanta Legal Aid. So we were all representing different slices or approaches of the problem, to the problem. So 2019 was the year of laying the groundwork. We didn't serve any clients that whole year. We just met and planned what we would do. So Ahimsa House, and I really can't thank them enough or give them enough credit for helping launch Paws Between Homes, because what they did was they were very generous and open with sharing their model, their systems, their paperwork, their agreements that they enter into with clients and with fosters, how they have handled troubling or problematic situations that have come up. They just answered all of our questions. And so we decided not to reinvent the wheel and to really follow their model in many ways. So we decided, much like Ahimsa House does, that we would offer up to 90 days of temporary fostering. We prepared our client, we call it the consent to care and custody. So it's that's the form we enter into, or the agreement we enter into with the client. And then the foster form. None of this did we draft from scratch. We modified the versions that Ahimsa House was already using. We spent a while in 2019 trying to figure out if we should go ahead and become our own nonprofit organization versus finding a fiscal sponsor that would receive any money that we fundraised, sort of lend us their 501c3 status, allowing us to operate as a nonprofit, but without necessarily going through the process of becoming one ourselves. And to make a very long story short, we had identified a potential fiscal sponsor that fell through. And so finally, in the second half of 2019, we said, you know what, let's just do it. Let's become our own nonprofit. You know, we'll some questions we got answered at the time, and other questions we said we'll figure out the answers as we go. And we decided just to bite the bullet and do that. So we got incorporated in the state of Georgia. We applied for our nonprofit status with the IRS, and that was awarded, obviously. Also in that year, we created a website, we launched a Facebook page, and then fundraising, we decided, we set the goal that we would fundraise $10,000 before we opened our metaphorical doors. Somewhat arbitrary number, but we knew we wanted to have a little bit of a nest egg in the bank and that's the other thing we did. We opened a bank account. We knew we wanted to have some cushion because we knew there would be vet bills. We knew we'd have to buy supplies for the animals, food, and all that kind of thing. So we just picked 10,000 as our goal. And we ended up hitting that right around the end of 2019. So January 2020 was when we officially opened the door. Every time I say we opened the door, people say, oh, you have a building? I mean the metaphorical door. Unfortunately, we do not have a brick and mortar facility. Maybe someday we will. Right now, we are just operating, we're all volunteer. We have no paid staff, and we're operating out of our homes, our home offices, and no actual facility yet. So we spent, especially the early part of 2020, just getting the word out. We wanted people to know that we were here, and we needed help. We had a core group of volunteers, what we call our steering committee, in addition to our board, and we had sort of a small bench or a small list of fosters, but we knew we needed just more bodies. We needed more fosters, we needed more steering committee members, we needed more people to help us with data entry and just all of the moving pieces. So we did a lot on Facebook and other social media, and through our existing networks, because everyone on that steering committee and on our board had existing contacts, or either they were already employed at an animal rescue or animal welfare organization, or just through their own personal networks, they had connections. That is a big part of how we got the word out. So we did not have to start from scratch. We really just tapped into our existing networks and said, hey, did you know I'm involved in this new effort? Or let me tell you about this new organization I'm involved in. Or and to a person, every response that we got was, wow, that's a great idea. And then those people told other people. So word of mouth really started to spread. We did get some friendly local media coverage, which helped in the early days we're still in the early days, but in the very early days, beginning of 2020, a couple local news stations did little public human interest pieces about us. And we got definitely a lot more interest and volunteers through those pieces. And of course, starting in January 2020, we had no idea what was about to hit the world. Nobody did. And so it made 2020 both totally disorienting and dizzying, and also made me feel really proud and fortunate that we did exist, that we were there for when COVID hit in March of 2020, because that pandemic took what was already a challenging housing scene for low-income people in Atlanta and just made things so much worse. People lost their jobs or had their hours cut, couldn't pay their rent. Georgia does not have its own sort of statewide eviction moratorium, as some states do. Atlanta really does not have one either. So we've relied on sort of the patchwork of federal moratoriums, which are imperfect. So the bottom line is people have continued to get displaced in Atlanta and Metro Atlanta throughout 2020, and it's accelerating now. The other thing I should say, the other decision that we made in 2019 as we were laying the groundwork was we decided to adopt a very small and limited geographic footprint. We really did not want to get too big for our britches too soon and say, oh, we serve the whole state, or we serve, 10 counties or something like that. Not because we didn't think there was a need, obviously there is, but we were just so tiny and we didn't really know what we were capable of. So what we did initially was we partnered with the Pets for Life program that is run by Lifeline Animal Project in Atlanta. Pets for Life, probably a lot of people listening have that program in their own cities or are familiar with it, but basically it targets high poverty, high need neighborhoods and goes out to them, does outreach, brings pet food, supplies, spay and neutering, vaccination services, all for free. So we adopted the 6 zip code footprint, sort of a L shape, that the Atlanta Pets for Life program adopted, knowing that we could share resources that way, that anyone who lived in those zip codes, if they were being forced to move, could come to us for help, and could also turn to Pets for Life for services they can provide. So good idea. We very quickly expanded past that footprint. And it was like instant, I won't say mission creep because I think we've been true to our mission, but it was instant like geography creep because, you know, we would get calls from someone in the next zip code over, or, you know, the 2 zip codes away. And if we had a foster home available, it really did not make sense to turn that person down because they fell, you know, on the opposite side of this imaginary line on the map. So we do still focus pretty strongly on, you know, South and West Atlanta, which are the highest poverty parts of the city, highest eviction rates. But we have served people really all over the metro area. Okay, so where are we now? So we have continued to grow and mature as an organization. We've still got a ways to go, but where we are right now is we are still all volunteer-based. We don't yet have funding for staff. Hopefully that will come in the next year or two. But we have really focused on refining the infrastructure of the organization and making it more functional, and making ourselves more nimble in meeting the needs. So we have established 5 committees so far. We have our foster committee, our client services committee, communications, fundraising, and then diversity, equity, and inclusion. So these are in various, some of them are meeting more frequently than others. They are not all in lockstep, but we do now have this framework for them, and they have sort of their little mini mission statements as committees, which has really helped a lot. We rely on, you know, free tools online, free to nonprofits usually. So we have a Google Drive, which is where we store all of our documents and spreadsheets. I found a spreadsheet through one of the, it might have even been the American Pets Alive Facebook page or one of the similar pages that had a link to this very cool custom foster matchmaker spreadsheet, which I can send around the link later or include that with the slides. But in any case, that's what we use to do the matchmaking between the potential client or potential pet who may become our client and our foster homes. And we have relied so heavily and continue to rely on partnerships with pretty much anyone who will partner with us. So we have a wonderful partnership with a kennel, boarding kennel, doggy daycare and boarding kennel called Pet Suites. And they have offered to board up to 2 dogs and 2 cats for us at any time for free. So that has been just a true lifesaver and godsend when we are not able to get a pet quickly into foster, and we need sort of this temporary space for them to be held because, as I said, we don't actually have a building or a facility of our own. We have, as I mentioned, a close partnership with Lifeline, which runs the Pets for Life program. And then our newest partnership that is still, we're finalizing an MOU, is with the Atlanta Humane Society, which is, and they also, by the way, were part of the steering committee from day one, but they are going to be providing us with vet services for no cost. And so far, our biggest expense has been vet bills. And the agreement is going to spell out, it'll be basic vetting, vaccinations, spay and neuter, and just a few other things. But, my point is, it really does take a village, especially as an all volunteer organization. We have been so reliant on our partners, both individuals, volunteers, and well-established organizations that have been doing this for years, decades, and can really teach us things. We are very much in the posture of a new learner, a beginning learner, and just figuring things out as we go, and finding our mentors wherever we can, and just learning as much as we can while we try to help as many people as we can. So some stats to date. This is literally as of today. I checked our spreadsheet so I could give you the most current information. Since January of 2020, we have helped 58 pets belonging to a total of 42 owners. Just some demographics about those 42 owners: 29 Black, 12 white, 1 Latina, 25 women, 17 men. As of this moment, 17 are currently in foster. We had 35 returned to owners, which I'm really proud of that number. And only 6 were not reclaimed. And so it's all spelled out in our paperwork that we enter into with the owner, the permanent guardian, what happens if they're not able to reclaim their pet because of circumstances. And basically, the agreement they signed just says that they surrender their pet to us. If they're not able to reclaim their pet after the 90 days, and if no extension is granted, at that point, the pet does become surrendered to us. So of those 6 that were not reclaimed, 4 were adopted by the foster. So that was not necessarily the happy ending that we envisioned. Obviously, we were hoping for a return to owner, but from the pet's perspective, they got to stay with the family that they had grown to love and were familiar with. So I would call that sort of an unexpected happy ending. And then the 2 other ones we ended up bringing to the local, the Lifeline run animal shelter, and they were adopted through the shelter. So not bad outcomes, I don't think. And then financials, I thought people might just be interested to know kind of what we're working with. So in 2020, we did raise in that year alone. So that I'm not including the $10,000 we raised in 2019, but just in 2020 alone, we did raise $18,000 and spend $12,000. So we entered 2021 with a nice little surplus, a little cushion in the bank, which has been helpful this year.
Hey, Cole.
Yes.
Can I ask you, and you may be, this may be in your slides somewhere. So if so, you can totally just tell me to wait patiently. But I was wondering, do you have a sense of how much of that was veterinary? I know you said that was the majority of needs, but maybe a better question is, have you had to at any point hire trainers or board an animal that maybe just wrong in their home or has some challenges?
Sorry, you cut out for a second. Have we had to board an animal that what?
Yeah, either hiring a behavior, like a trainer, or boarding a pet that has some behavior challenges.
Okay. Yes. So, and actually, let me just say the last piece I was going to say about our fundraising before I forget to circle back to it. The $18,000 that we raised in 2020, a lot of that was individual donations. And then we did receive a grant from a family foundation that was $10,000 at the end of 2020. So that was a huge shot in the arm for us as a small organization. So I just wanted to put that out there in case anyone was curious about that. But I don't know off the top of my head. It's a really good question, and I should have anticipated it. How much of the $12,000 we spent in 2020 was vet bills? I would say, just if I had to estimate, probably, I would say probably 2/3 of that. which is what, about $8,000, maybe a little bit less than that, but more than half, more than half. The other expense line, the other thing that we do cover with our money is we do pay pet deposits or pet fees when our clients do find new pet-friendly housing and they're getting ready to move in. We will cover that pet fee. So those can add up. Those can be a little pricey, but the vet bills definitely were significant. So that's why we're super excited for the partnership with Atlanta Humane Society, because that's going to save us a lot of money. But to answer your other question, we have one dog, had one dog come through the program who we did send to a trainer, who was just a wonderful dog, and had a couple of unfortunate bite incidents, nothing too serious, but we knew he was being triggered by something and just couldn't figure out what. So we did, his foster was actually a vet tech who was just is a wonderful human being and was just the perfect foster for him and was not turned off by his challenges. And she actually is the one who recommended the trainer. So we were able to get him into training, which essentially resolved the problem. As far as other dogs with behavioral issues that have come through, there have been some. Honestly, some we have either denied service to or sort of prematurely ended the relationship. We had one dog come through who, excuse me, about to sneeze. It's allergy season.
That's the worst.
Oh man. We had one dog come through who was a real challenge. We couldn't find the right foster home for him. We had him in boarding, which was sort of our last resort. It did not go well in boarding. He actually attacked another dog in the boarding placement that he was in. And at that point, we invoked the section of our contract, which said that we can terminate services at any time, including for behavioral reasons. So, I feel bad about that. One of the hard lessons I've had to learn in the last year plus is, sometimes is that you can't help everyone. And sometimes you have to learn, when to say no or sorry, but I just can't do it. So.
But it sounds like the percentage is relatively small.
Yes. Yeah, and we'll see if that holds. Maybe that'll change as we get more calls and more clients, but so far it has been a small number. Okay. Please interrupt me with other questions. There should be plenty of time at the end. I'm actually almost done if folks have other questions, but I'll just keep going with a couple more slides. Needs and challenges. So as we have grown and sort of filled out as an organization, we do have sort of the ongoing challenge of engaging new volunteers. And I mean that across the board, both folks who want to be on the steering committee, folks who want to help us with everything from intake to Georgia actually requires home inspections of foster homes. So we need people available to do those, paperwork, data entry, returning calls, you name it, all the volunteer tasks, as well as fosters. That's our biggest category of need. We do have many wonderful fosters signed up, but I've learned that finding the right foster home for the right pet is like looking for that spot for that puzzle piece in a 1,000-piece puzzle. And just because you have 50 wonderful fosters doesn't mean any of them will be a good fit for a particular pet. So all that to say, we're sort of constantly searching for fresh blood, new folks who want to get involved. The committees themselves that I listed, those 5 committees, it's great that we have them. All of them are kind of understaffed. They each have maybe 2 or 3 people on them and could probably use 6 or 7 or 10 people on them. So we do need more interested people to get involved and pick up an oar and help paddle us down the river. Streamlining and accelerating the process from intake to placement. So this is one thing that we've really had to work hard to get better at. So, you know, the calls come in, usually several calls a week, or emails, or, you know, Facebook messages, whatever it might be. And if that happens on day one, you know, when does that pet get into the foster home? You know, we want that obviously as quickly as possible, because usually by the time someone calls us, you know, they don't have a lot of time to spare. They may be having to move in the next couple days, or they may have already moved out. We've had folks call us who are already living in their cars with their pets, or in motel rooms where they weren't supposed to have pets, and they sort of snuck in their dog, and they're worried that the manager is going to find out and kick them out. So we really need to be nimble and flexible enough to very quickly get that pet into a foster home. And that's something we've lagged on a bit. I think we're getting better at it, but it is still an area for growth for us. And then that goes along with the fourth bullet point, which is just quickly responding to urgent needs. Because we are all volunteers, we all have day jobs of our own, including me. It just becomes challenging to just find space in the day, and you know, to do all the legwork to make things happen. So, you know, we're working on it. Again, I hope that maybe by 2022, we can have at least a part-time administrator, program coordinator, who can help take the lead on some of these moving pieces. As an all-volunteer organization, it does get tough. And that is it. All the other slides that I've shown you, those were pictures of clients. This is actually a picture of one of our fosters, wonderful foster home for that little guy whose name is Rocky. But I'm happy to answer questions. Please check out our website and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are almost at 2,000 Facebook followers. I'm really like biting my nails to see how quickly we can get there. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
Oh, this is amazing. I just feel like starting, not only identifying a gap in your community, but then pulling together organizations and people and starting a nonprofit to fill that gap is the ultimate volunteer commitment that I can think of. It's truly amazing. One of the things that kind of stood out to me is early in the presentation, you were saying, you know, here's the things that we can figure out now, and here's the things that we're just going to figure out as we go. And one of the things that, you know, I've always been taught is that perfection is the enemy of progress, right? So if you're waiting till everything's perfect, you're missing out on a lot of opportunity to help. So I'm wondering, you know, today when I was sharing this presentation in the AMPA support group, and I was thinking there's a lot of shelters that are talking about this need right now, and safety net fostering and peer-to-peer fostering, and how do we kind of fill this gap. And I know that there's a lot of shelters that probably have directors or elected officials that are saying, no way, don't touch that. That's not our business. And being able to see what you've done can really be an inspiration to those communities. So I imagine that volunteers at shelters where they're not able to enact a program like this could do something similar to what you've done. So yeah, long question, or long setup for the question. The question itself is like, what would you recommend to them? Like, what are the first thing they do? Do they go talk to a bunch of organizations? Do they pull together some fosters? Do they start raising money? Like, what do they do first?
Yeah. So absolutely. I mean, the way that we did it, that in hindsight, I think worked well is, you know, again, we really didn't reinvent the wheel. We knew that we had, well, I was not working in the animal welfare space, but luckily I was connected to people who were. And in that network is a huge amount of institutional knowledge and just, good ideas, smart people who are just immersed in this work, committed to this work as their life mission, and are just have good thoughts about strategy, infrastructure, technique. So I would just start by talking to people. That's what we did. I mean, our first conference call, for some reason, I was in my car. I pulled over. I must have been running late. I just remember being on my cell phone in the middle of a parking lot somewhere on this conference call with 3 or 4 other people, all of us saying, well, what about this? And couldn't we do that? And what about this person? Should we bring them to the table? And there was such synergy and energy. It was really exhilarating. And I knew that we were going to make I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I knew we were going to build something really exciting. So yeah, if this doesn't already exist, first of all, probably people have already thought about it who are working with you or around you. So I would just get a few folks to the table, virtual or literal table, and just say, what would it take to do this in our community? And start small. I mean, if you have, 3 fosters, that's 3 pets you can help. Another, I think, good idea or good decision that we made is not to get too ambitious too soon. And we did start small, with just a few pets. In fact, our very first foster was actually Myra from Ahimsa House, who volunteered to be our very first foster. And on January 4th, 2020, I jumped in my car and met a client who had called our number and picked up his 2 dogs and drove them over to Myra's house. So, if you're willing to do a lot of legwork yourself, it can be surprising how quickly you can start making change, and then you start inspiring other people, and it ripples out, and more people want to get involved.
That's amazing. Myra really is a blessing to to the world.
She is. She's amazing.
I had another question. Actually, let's go to Lucy's question in the chat there. She's curious what software you use to track volunteers and fosters and the pets you help. And I know you mentioned the foster matchmaking spreadsheet, but that's probably not all of it.
Well, you'd be surprised. It is all of it. So let me actually see if I can. Give me just 1 minute. I should be able to pull it up quickly so you can see what it looks like. We don't really have a budget at this point for one of the sort of off the rack software packages that are out there. So we've had to make do with, here it is. We've had to make do with what we can find for free. Let me share this. So I wish I could tell you where I found this, and I owe the credit to somebody, and embarrassingly, I cannot remember who put this together. Oh, it says it right here. It was developed by the Humane Rescue Alliance for the purpose of supporting more effective and efficient foster care programs run by animal welfare organizations of all types and sizes. Okay, so just quickly, because I know folks may have other questions, but what I love about this is it's really easy to use with these tabs down at the bottom with the setup. Well, you do that ahead of time. Candidates are the pets. So here's our list of pets. You can see foster completed, foster in progress, information about the animal, species, where we picked them up, if they have any conditions like on medication, needs exercise, needs training. And then once you enter them in, you also enter your household. So these are all of our fosters. You can see who has available spots, who's fully booked, what the notes are about who they can take. And then you go to this matching tab. And if you have a pet, you type in the information about the pet, and then it automatically tells you these households might be a good match. This household is a 100% match. This household is an 85% match because they really only want dogs under 20 pounds, but you said this dog is 30 pounds or whatever it might be. So this solved a lot of problems we were having, which was we had sort of multiple spreadsheets going, just regular Excel spreadsheets or Google spreadsheets. But this sort of puts it all in one place. So I will find the link to download this, and this is all free. So thank you, Humane Rescue Alliance. But yeah, that has really been a great tool for us. Eventually, I think we're going to need something a little bit more, maybe some more bells and whistles. But for now, this is what we use.
Awesome. And for those of you on the call, if you don't know Jenna and Humane Rescue Alliance, they're pretty amazing and very willing to share stuff. So that's great.
Oh, and Christina in the comments said Shelter Love is free. Great. I will definitely check that out. I've heard of them and assumed that it was costly, but shame on me. I will definitely check that out.
So what I was going to ask is, you were talking about partnering with Pets for Life and kind of aligning with their the services that they provide, the geographic area. And I was wondering if you did some training for them or with Lifeline. Like, how did you get your organization's kind of information and processes shared out outside of your board?
Specifically with the Lifeline Pets for Life team?
With whoever might be referring pets to you. Yeah. Or your services. Like, how did you teach your community about what it was that you were offering?
So it really was word of mouth. So in that sort of initial core group of people who came together, it included actually a couple people who were affiliated with Lifeline, including someone who at that time was running the Pets for Life program, or was extremely familiar with it. So it was very organic. We said, gosh, this is what we're doing. This is who we think we want to serve. This is where we think the needs are. And that person who happened to be at the table said, this sounds like such a natural, it just dovetails so perfectly with what Pets for Life already does. And I said, what does Pets for Life do? And so I learned about that. And so, the original idea was, well, and what has continued to happen to a degree is that they would refer people to us as they found people who they thought could qualify for our services. So a lot of it was just people understanding immediately why we're doing what we're doing, sort of why this is a need, and then having us at the top of mind to refer people to us. Oh, hey, we can't help you, but try this new organization, Paws Between Homes. And so, every partnership that we make, that partner starts telling their network about us. If you think of it as like, if you want to draw a map, there's all these dots and each dot has a million little spider webs coming out of it. Pet Suites, the place that gives us free boarding, which was through a connection that one of our steering committee members had, they refer people to us. We got a referral from a grooming salon that I had never heard of, but somehow someone had mentioned us to them. So, and the fosters. Fosters are actually a wonderful source of good PR, assuming they have had a good experience with your program. They will tell their friends. They will post on Facebook, like, hey, I'm involved with this. You should do it too. And maybe their friends become donors or volunteers or just pass the word on. So we haven't done much like affirmative advertising other than getting some cards printed up that we've put around town in a few places. Mostly it has been pretty organic word of mouth.
On that question, sorry, I'm gonna just because it's very directly related. How many families, people, pets, etc., would you say you have to turn away just because you are at your capacity? And have you calculated your capacity, or is it just a matter of there's not a home for this one, but there is for the next one?
Yeah, capacity is a really interesting question and topic, because my experience has been that capacity is a very squishy concept. I could look at my list of foster homes and count up the ones, you saw on the spreadsheet, the ones that said 1 spot available, 2 spots available, and tally all that up and tell you what my capacity is. But the reality is,
they don't all fit. Yeah.
They don't all fit. And, sometimes I'll think, gosh, I don't have any good foster, any available foster for this pet. And I'll post it on my personal Facebook page. And some friend that I, forgot about says, oh, I can foster. So now I have a new foster. So I really hate turning people away. The reality is we do have to do it, especially if they need our help like tomorrow. And I just can't find someone who is available that quickly. I probably turn down 3 or 4 calls a month, I would say.
Okay.
Just because we can't. I mean, we had a call come in the other day, actually it was an email. A woman wanted to know if we can help her foster her 6 dogs.
Yeah.
So, right off the bat, I'm worried. If she's willing to split them up, maybe, but people aren't always willing to do that. Well, and the ones with bite histories are really tough. I don't have to, I'm preaching to the choir here, but there are definitely more challenging calls that we get, and we do sometimes have to say no, either because of the timing or we just don't have the right match.
Right. I'm just thinking, so we had one organization, I'm in Washington State, and we had basically one organization on our side of the state that any of us knew of that did it, and their wait list was approximately 2 years long.
Oh my goodness.
Was along the line of what you're doing, transitional fostering.
Wow.
And so, obviously at some point they just stopped accepting clients, right? Because waiting 2 years doesn't help anybody. So I just know that all our resources were just tapped out to the max, and then ended up shutting down. One of our local humane societies has now opened a similar program, which I'm really excited about. I will say, as far as spreading word, tell all your local shelters, man. They're the ones getting the calls every day of, I have this pet, I can't keep him for 40 days, that sort of thing. But I'm so excited to hear that these are popping up and that you're helping create that model, because it is needed everywhere.
And the other thing, I agree with everything you said. And the other thing beyond telling the shelters is, I think animal welfare people don't always think to reach out to the local housing advocates. Like almost every place in the country has some sort of legal aid or legal services office. And those people, those attorneys and paralegals, they're handling evictions. And though people in those offices aren't thinking about, hey, I should create a relationship with the local shelter. Like there's a lot of silos between those two fields. And, it's starting to break down, and I'm so glad it is. But, if you reach out to your local legal aid office and say, hey, do you think there's a need, or can you help us get the word out? I guarantee you they're going to say, oh my God, we desperately need something like this. I helped this family, get an extra 2 months before they have to move out of their home, and they don't have an eviction on their record, but their big problem is, they have this dog. So there's a huge potential.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I think Lucy had a question that I stepped on. Sorry. In chat.
Oh, in chat.
So she's asking, what, if any, liability concerns do you have or prepare for regarding behavior or injury of the animals or the fosters?
Yep.
And I know you're a lawyer, so the first thing you're going to say is, this is not legal advice.
That's true. It is not legal advice, but I left this out. So one thing that we also did in that 2019 year of planning was we got ourselves an insurance policy. We didn't want to start serving anyone without insurance. So we shopped around a bit and found a pretty decent, affordable liability insurance policy. So there's that protection, but also, so I am a lawyer, and there's a lawyer from Atlanta Legal Aid who is also on our board, and so it helps to have two lawyers in the mix. And one of the things that we were careful to include in our contracts, both the contract with the client and the contract with the foster, is a waiver of liability, that we do not assume any liability for damage to person or property. Now, how enforceable is that? I will certainly, hopefully never have to find out, but we do spell it out in writing and explain it verbally when we're entering into these relationships, that the liability remains with the permanent guardian. In other words, if your dog bites somebody in the foster home, you are liable for that dog bite. Again, knock on wood, cross your fingers that we never have to worry about that, and it hasn't come up yet, but we do have that language in there.
Thanks so much. I work at APA, and I'm actually, I just got hired to do exactly what y'all are doing. And so I'm,
great.
Just trying to ask like the behind the scenes stuff, because I know it's a great program. I know it's a great idea. It's rolling in a couple places throughout the country, but like the operational part of it, I'm kind of curious about it, because, it's a great idea, but of course, like most things in animal welfare, just in the world, there's great ideas, and then how to actually get it done, track it, and keep, cover your butt as an organization is what really just needs to be ironed out. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, one of our, we're sort of going through these iterations, and we're in version 1.0, maybe 1.5 right now. But as we get as an organization into 2.0, I want to go back to our insurance policy and make sure that we do have all the coverage that we need, if in case something like that happens. But yeah, it's important to be prepared for the worst.
Yeah, for those on the call, so if you haven't yet seen Ryan Clinton's article, Can I Get Sued for That? Basically, he says you can get sued for anything. It's whether you're held liable or not.
So true.
All right. Well, we're just about out of time. Does anyone have any last questions for Cole?
Cole, can I give you my email address, or can I have yours? I'm probably going to harass you a little bit.
Oh, please do. And Christine, I think I owe you an email back too. We were going to connect.
Yeah, I was excited to do this. Yes, we'll definitely chat and talk about our organizations and what we're both doing. So that'll be great.
Great. I just put my email in the chat. It's just
Perfect.
Cole@Paws Between Homes. So feel free to drop me an email or share that. I love talking about this stuff.
And Cole, you are the author of my new favorite quote, which is pick up an oar and help paddle.
Oh, I really like to beat metaphors into the ground. So thank you for, for appreciating that and not disdaining that.
No, I think it's fantastic. And, we wouldn't be where we are in animal welfare if there weren't folks like you and your team that identified a need and said, let's go fill it. So thank you so much for all of your work, and thank you for presenting today. I'm sure you will be inundated with emails shortly, and you may regret sharing your address.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yes. Thank you, Cole. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for what you and all your team does.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
All right, everyone have a lovely afternoon. Our next call is tomorrow for Volunteer Appreciation Week. I cannot think of who it is off the top of my head, but we've got some great calls this week, still from Gateway Pet Guardians in St. Louis, Illinois, about their unicorn foster program, Top Dog training program, and Urgent Dog Task Force in Pima. Fostering for rock stars out of Oregon, clicker training for cats through Jackson Galaxy. There's just so many cool things that volunteers are doing, and we're so glad to be able to celebrate some of that. So happy Volunteer Week, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.